Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's book-to-show comparison for the Expanse Season 4, Episode 8, The One-Eyed Man. This video is part of a series of videos where I compare the Expanse TV show to that of its source material, pointing out the differences and giving my opinion on how well I think these adaptations work. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for The Expanse up to Season 4, Episode 8. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. However, if you haven't read the books, not to worry, this video will not contain spoilers for events that occur beyond Season 4, so you are safe from future spoilers. So this video might be a little shorter than my usual book to show comparison video, as most of this episode consists of events from the Avasarala, Bobby Draper, and Drummer storylines, and with the exception of one scene from the Bobby Draper storyline, I decided to skip all of that stuff. As the storylines are mostly original material with nothing to compare to from the novels, the only resemblance it has to the novels is setting up for Book 5, which I don't want to get into as I'm trying to keep this video spoiler free as it pertains to Season and Book 5. But I will get to all of this in my coverage of the Season 4 finale, as that video will get full into Book 5 spoilers, so I'll save that discussion for then. For now, I'll cover what little of this episode that pertains to Book 4. So our episode begins with Holden dragging a dead body into a pile of several other dead bodies. He then notices he has a slug on his leg and he freaks out to swipe it off, and then he stomps on it. He then gets a call from Naomi where he informs her that another belter wandered off and got killed by a slug. Naomi informs Holden that they'll be ready to try to tow the Barber Bacola soon, and Holden said he's glad because something should go right for at least one of them. So in the novels, there's no direct scene like this, but it's similar, as in the novels people were safe from the slugs inside, so there were many workers building trenches outside of the alien structure to keep the death slugs out. One such work crew was working when Holden noticed a death slug on the pants of one of them. He didn't want to freak the guy out, as he might instinctively touch the slug and get killed, so instead Holden told him not to move as he shoved him to the ground, and then in one move swiped his pants off of him and threw them away. He then explained that there was a death slug on them. So he determined that the workers' eyesight had gone too much, so sent them back inside. So that's in the spirit of what's happening in the show, as their eyesight had gone too much, where those who wandered off were killed. It's in the same spirit as the novels, but I found the novels version slightly more interesting, so I'm going to give this a -1. So then Holden arrives back at the main Belter camp where Carol Chiwiwi is waiting for him, and Holden has to sadly inform her that the missing man is dead. Holden tells her that if she hears anyone else wander off, to call him immediately. And just then another Belter starts freaking out, saying, "Get it off me," but nothing is on him, so Holden goes to him to calm him down and gives him a sedative. Holden then finds Amos with a blowtorch torching already dead slugs. Holden tells him that he got them all, but Amos doesn't respond, so Holden gently touches his shoulder, to which Amos has a violent reaction to, and Holden just reiterates that he got them all. Amos calms down but goes back to torching the slugs and says that he's sending a message to the rest of them. Holden asks Amos if there's anything he needs, but he says nah, he's good. Holden then asks to borrow the blowtorch, but Amos refuses, saying that he's keeping it. So in the novels, there wasn't really a problem with people wandering off. It was more people got killed by being outside in order to complete necessary tasks. We didn't get a scene of someone freaking out thinking there's a slug on them, although that tension was implied. We got a similar scene with Amos where he was outside repairing a cart. He had an electric perimeter set up around the cart that would fry any death slugs that got too close. When Holden suggested clearing the dead slugs away, Amos said not to, because it sent a message to the rest of the slugs. However, Holden's talk with Amos was more cordial in the novels, where Holden just suggested to him that he should go inside where it's safer, but Amos said he'd rather kill himself than listen to a bunch of people whine about how fucked they all are. So Holden lets the topic drop. So I think the show's version adds a lot of tension, particularly the way the man freaked out that Holden had to sedate him, plus showing how Amos is losing his cool from being helpless was a great character beat for him. So I'm going to give this a +2. We then see Holden go to Elvie and ask what she learned about the death slugs, but since she can't read, she needs Holden to read the results to her, and he does, and she says, has she suspected that the slugs secrete a neurotoxin fatal to humans. Holden asks if she can create a vaccine, but she said even if she had her eyesight, it would take her at least a week. Then Mercury calls Holden over, and he reports that the oceans has receded enough where they can go to the surface. He suggests that being there would be much safer for them because they'd be away from the death slugs. Holden says that it would be impossible to get everyone out while they're blind, but Mercury suggests that he and his men are well trained, and with his guidance they could manage to get out. However, Holden tells Mercury that they're not leaving the Belters behind, and when they go, they will all go together. Mercury is obviously not happy with this and tells Holden that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Holden simply tells Mercury that he'll take the Belters to the latrine, and when he's done, he'll do the same for his people. Mercury, feeling helpless at that and at Holden's mercy, simply says, "Thank you, Captain Holden." So in the novels, first of all, they discovered the death slugs before they went blind, and they had already determined that they couldn't find a cure. So at this stage, they were more focused on curing the blindness. As for Mercury, as I mentioned in previous videos, there was never a tsunami, so they were able to go outside whenever they wanted to. Plus, it wasn't a climb to get in and out of the opening to the alien structure, because that was ground level in the novel, so it was much easier for them to do so. Further, it was actually safer inside the alien structure rather than outside, as the death slugs were found in the mud and came from outside. So there was never this dispute of Mercury wanting to leave the Belters behind, and the dispute was more about the fact that Mercury was holding Naomi prisoner. And at this stage is when Basia and Havelock helped Naomi escape her captivity, and Holden found Mercury in communication with his ship, trying to stop her escape, so Holden knocked Mercury down and stole his comms. Mercury belittled Holden for beating up on a blind man when he could see, but Holden simply tells Mercury to look him up once he gets his sight back. Now, I do understand that the show went a different way with having a tsunami and skipping the whole Havelock and Naomi being held prisoner storyline, and this scene being different from the novels is a natural consequence of that. But, if I'm being honest here, I do much prefer the scene of Holden beating up Mercury and stealing his comms in order to help Naomi escape. I did think that was quite awesome, so I'm going to give this a -3. So then we go back to an orbit where we see Naomi and Lucia working on connecting a cable to the Barbara Bacola so they can tow it out of orbit. We also see Felsia and the captain of the Barbara Bacola working on connecting it from their end. The captain tells Felsia that he wanted to thank her for hating her parents, as she might save them all from being fucked. So the novels never went into as much detail of how they set up the cable system to tow the barb. This all happened off screen, so to speak, or in between chapters, if you will. But of course, Felsia was never involved in setting it up. She was just a passenger. This gets back to what I was talking about in previous videos about how Felsia is being treated like the captain or chief engineer when she's just a 14-year-old girl who hasn't even had an education yet. And here, the captain of the Barbara Bacola is thanking her for saving them. Can somebody say Wesley Crusher? -4. On Ellis, Holden goes to Elvie looking for more painkillers and sedatives and finds there's only one left. He asks her if she can make more, to which she answers no. Mercury then speaks up and tells Holden that their food and drug supplies will run out soon and he has to think about cutting their losses. He then tells Holden that the Belters won't forget that he's the reason they're down there. And just as Holden is getting ready to yell at Mercury, he hears Chiwewe and a bunch of Belters calling for him in the next room. He runs to them and Chiwewe tells him that she thought she heard someone walk off. Holden looks over to find Amos is missing. So he goes in the hallway looking for him and finds Amos walking right towards a wall full of death slugs. Holden yells at him to stop, but he doesn't listen. Holden tries to pull him back, but Amos attacks Holden. Since Amos is blind and Holden can see, though, Holden easily manages to dodge his attack and Amos crumbles to his knees in exhaustion. Holden tries to soothingly calm him down and then is able to gently guide him back to the Belter camp. There, he sincerely tells Amos that he needs him. So, first off, we didn't get a scene with Mercury telling Holden to kill the Belters, as things never really got that bad in the novels, but also, we got no scene of Amos breaking down and trying to kill himself. Things never got so desperate for Amos in the novels, but I must say, this is much more dramatic for this character and really drives the story, so I'm going to give this a +4. So then we go back to Mars, where Isai had arranged a big score that would apparently set them all up for life. But Bobby Draper is dubious about this job, as it's very vague on the details and it's coming from a man she doesn't trust, plus they don't even know what they're selling. So she visits Isai in his home to express her doubts to him in person and discovers that he has a wife and 2 children. After urging Isai to walk away from this job, he refuses, stating that this job will give him enough money so he can take his family and leave. Bobby asks him where he would go, and he says that he would go through the ring gates. Bobby argues that they're not letting ships through the ring gates, but Isai says eventually they will, and he doesn't want to get left behind when that happens. Bobby asks what about Mars, but he states that Mars is dead, that nobody is going to want to stay behind to work on terraforming a terraforming project when they literally are thousands of worlds ripe for the taking. Bobby argues that he can't take his family away if he's dead, but Isai apparently feels it's worth the risk. So as I mentioned before in previous videos, there was no equivalent to the Bobby Isai storyline in the novels. However, I thought it was interesting to talk about this scene as it is somewhat reminiscent of the epilogue of Book 4. In that chapter, Avasarala travels to Mars where she meets with Bobby Draper and has a similar talk about how Mars is dead. However, in that scenario, it takes place after the situation on Illis is resolved and ships started going through the ring gates, and she blamed Holden for calming the situation on Illis, where she was hoping he would prove how dangerous it was. Avasarala's chief concern is Mars, as opening the ring gates will mean the death of Mars, as the economy will not be able to take the losses that the entire infrastructure will collapse when so many people leave to go through the ring gates. Leaving the only economy that Mars has left is its advanced military weaponry and ships, which he fears will enter the black market. And this is what the Bobby Isai storyline has been about all season: Martian technology entering the black market due to the impending collapse of Mars. Now, granted, in the show it happens a bit earlier, before ships even started going through the ring gates, but it makes sense as it's just a sign of what is to come. However, I found it brilliant to make an entire storyline about this and how Bobby comes to realize Mars is doomed and is involved in some of the illegal black market sales. It really drives home the situation far more than one conversation did in the novels, so I'm going to give this a +4. So back on Illis, we get a scene where Wei is approaching Amos after she heard what happened to him and tries to comfort him by saying that she knows how he feels. But Amos tells her that she doesn't, and then tells the story of how he was abused when he was a child, how he was kept in a dark cellar, and when he woke up, he still couldn't see and didn't know if he was dead or alive. Though through communicating just how traumatizing being blind is for him. Wade tells him that people like them should have a say in how they go out, and Amos agrees. So we didn't get anything like this in the novels, although we are told around this time that Amos is spending a lot of time with Wei, but since Amos doesn't have any viewpoint chapters, we don't see it. Also, it was interesting to get more insight into his childhood trauma and how it affects him now. It's an avenue that the novels never really went into, so I'm going to give this a +3. Next, we see Holden go to Elvie saying that there has to be a way to cure the blindness. He tells her to test him again, but she says that it's pointless. He starts to freak out, but she says that this isn't on him, but he insists that it is. Elvie then gets the idea to test his eye fluid, so he sticks something in his eye to get a sample. Elvie laughs at the results, saying although there's nothing there to help them with their current problem, she tells him that he has pre-cancerous cells that that should be treated because it could kill him if not. Holden says that he already knows about this as he was eradicated on Eros. Elvie then feels his shoulder to tell if there's a medication port that he takes regular cancer meds, and she finds it, so she deduces that this is what's making him immune. He asks her if she has the ability to make more of these cancer meds, and she says that she does, so they both smile in celebration. So in the novels, Elvie figures out that it's Holden's cancer meds that are making him immune while she's alone with Fayez. Holden himself actually isn't there. Fayez actually jokes that it's Holden's eyeball juice that's making him immune, but they never actually consider that an option. Instead, during the course of the conversation, Fayez brings up the fact that Holden is taking cancer meds when it dawns on her that that's what's making him immune. Eventually, they bring in Holden and Lucia to test this theory, which turns out to be the case. However, in this case, they can't create more of Holden's cancer meds, but he gives them permission to use his meds to cure everyone else. So, either example I have a problem with. In the show, it seems unlikely that Elvie wouldn't already be aware that Holden was taking cancer meds, and it makes no sense why Holden would neglect to tell her. Surely she would have asked him for a medical history when trying to determine why he's immune. However, in the novels, it's just as bad because she is aware Holden is on cancer meds and yet never thought to consider it as an option until someone brought it up in casual conversation. It's like a cliched aha moment. So both cases are equally as bad, so I'm going to give this a 0. So in orbit, Naomi, Lucia, and Felsia put the finishing touches on their cable system in an attempt to give it a try. So Alex lightly accelerates the Rosnate, and the others are very worried and not sure that the cable will hold, but it does hold, and they all celebrate that they will be able to save the Barbacola. So in the novels, they didn't make such a big deal out of the cable system. There was never any doubt that it would work, as of course it would work because Naomi came up with it. So they kind of just quickly ran through this part. But this is a case where the visual medium has a huge advantage, as they have all these beautiful shots of the Rosnate and the Barbacola in space above Illis, and the fantastic music completely sells the moment, really selling the feeling of suspense before they accomplish it, and then it sells this sense of celebration once they accomplish it. So all in all, it totally heightened and made the scene, which was mundane in the books, really emotional in the show. So I'm going to give this a +4. On Ellis, Holden goes to Amos and gives him the good news about Elvie finding a cure to the blindness. Amos is shocked as he tells Holden he didn't think he could pull it off. Holden jokingly tells Amos that now he can say that he took him in a fight. Amos says that he can say whatever he wants, and the two of them smile in celebration. So we didn't really get a scene like this in the novels where Holden tells Amos they found the cure, and plus Amos never doubted that he would find a cure. But this makes more sense for the story dynamic they developed between the two of them in the show, and plus it's just another nice moment between these two characters, so I'm going to give this a +2. So everyone stands in line to get treated while those who have already have their eyesight working again work on killing the death slugs in the area, while Mercury crawls the ship with an evil plan to use the light shuttle as a bomb. Meanwhile, Holden climbs down to a spot where he's alone, where none other than Miller is waiting for him. He asks Miller where the hell has he been, but Miller fluctuates with his image changing until he lets out a blood-curdling scream. So in the novels, Mercury had already ordered the shuttle to be changed into a bomb, which had been done a while ago, but I understand the show changing things up a bit because they didn't have the Havelock storyline. As far as Miller goes, however, in the novels, Miller never went away. He was there bothering Holden the whole time, but Holden had put him on hold until they solved the current crisis with the blindness. But as soon as they did, Miller returned and said it was time for Holden to repay him the favor by having a look at the blind spot that he couldn't see to the north. Miller never screamed or fluctuated like this, but I'll get more into that in the next episode. For here, however, I kind of like the situation better where Miller never left and was there bothering Holden the whole time. It's just that Holden was busy before and now he's not. It makes more sense to me why Miller, rather than Miller disappearing and then conveniently reappearing once the current crisis is solved. So I'm going to give this a -3. So my final adaptation score for The One-Eyed Man is a +8. A decent adaptation with more highs than lows, as it's still ridiculous that a 14-year-old girl is put in charge of a Belter ship. But the interpersonal relationships between Holden and Amos are much stronger, as the show's also taking advantage of the visual medium to make things more emotional and powerful. And fleshing out the plot points on Mars, dying over a prolonged personal character story rather than one conversation, makes this a pretty good adaptation. So that's it for my book-to-show comparison for The Expanse Season 4, Episode 8. I'll be back in about 2 weeks for my book-to-show comparison for Episode 9, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. Also, be sure to check out my channel for more videos on The Expanse, as well as videos on other shows like Star Trek, Better Call Saul, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.